All right, we better get started. Really, because we have an unusual convergence of things to deal with today. It's Mother's Day. The topic assigned for today is the law of cause and effect. The theme for the month is compassion. And the affirmation for the month is I care for the poor. How does that all fit together in one 20-minute speech? It's an odd combo of things and a lot to deal with and a lot to unpack mindfully. I'm very glad that Reverend Masando last week set us up by explaining the difference between pity and real compassion. I hope you enjoyed his presentation. I did. I watched it. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. And then next week, we have another one of our favorite presenters, Reverend Andriette Earle from the East Bay. And she's coming up here, I know, jump up and down for joy. I know. And she's coming up to speak to us about more clarification of what do we mean with the word poor and who are the poor. And the reason why I'm getting an extra Sunday off this month is because next week Kevin is graduating from his master's degree at SSU. Yeah. And he told me that if I would like to stay married, I should be there. He's getting a master as a marriage and family therapist. I would rather talk about the law of cause and effect. Let's talk about that. So let's see what our founder says about it. He says the law of cause and effect is the law of perfect balance, of logical sequence, and of inevitable consequence. In other words, whatever a person sows, they must reap. So it's this idea, similar to the law of karma, that thoughts, beliefs, feelings have this way of determining our reality. And now the question for us this morning is, why would we have this particular topic in a month when we are focusing on compassion? When we're trying to develop our compassion for those people who do not have access to the resources that make for a happy, fulfilled, thriving, healthy, comfortable life. And I think the reason for that is because this law of cause and effect is one of those spiritual teachings that can be used in an unkind way, to make people feel terrible about the circumstances that they find themselves in. It can be used to blame people for the situation that they're in when we focus on that question. Look what you've done with your thinking. My dog Cooper, he knows when he's done something wrong. He doesn't need me to tell him. And you know what he does if I'm not home and I've left like an empty box of crackers were in the box, I leave it on the coffee table, and I know this because I've got security cameras. I see it. He gets up onto the couch, and then the coffee table is just that far away because he has to navigate to get that box and shred it. And then I'll come home and I'll see the piece of paper, and all I have to say is, "What have you done?" And on his back, legs in the air, belly up, and the shame and the guilt just pours out of him, And sometimes that's how we use the law of cause and effect to blame each other and ourselves with that question. What have you done in your consciousness and in your thinking? And we can do better than that as a movement. We can do better than that. Another thing we do with the law of cause and effect is that we hide behind it. We use it to hide from the world when we think something like, oh, that's your mess. It's your mind. It's not my problem. Or when we think something like, problems are caused by those people experiencing them. And it's got nothing to do with me. Oh, we can do better than that. Because one of the missing elements, here are some of the missing elements in that point of view. Kindness, compassion, charity. The Dalai Lama said something about kindness that is very relevant. He said that kindness is the foundation for so many other noble values, and that when you take kindness out of the mix, things get complicated. For example, think about truth, honesty. What is honesty without kindness? And have you ever witnessed the truth being told like a weapon? Accurate with its clarity, but not kind. What is charity without kindness? Maybe it's just pity. What is compassion without kindness? Is there even such a thing? What is integrity without kindness? Maybe it's just a bunch of rigid laws. What is volunteering without kindness? What is spirituality without kindness? And so today we can apply that to the law of cause and effect and ask, what is the law of cause and effect when we take kindness out of the mix? I think what happens is we reduce it. We simplify it to a sort of legalistic teaching that is tit for tat, this for that, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Then it becomes a teaching where every person is responsible for everything that happens to them, when in reality life is way more complicated than that. We can do better than that as a teaching. Now, to be clear, I'm a student of metaphysics, of science of mind. So I am fascinated by the relationship between my feelings, thoughts, and beliefs, and how that tends to show up in my life. I'm fascinated by that. And at the same time, I'm very clear, it's super clear to me, that some of what I think and feel and believe, I didn't even know was in there. Some of it was cultural, invisible to me. Some of it I inherited. Didn't even see it until I started to explore it later in life as an adult. And not only that, I'm also super clear that we are in this together. We're all thinking, feeling, believing together. In a way, we share responsibility for everything that is happening to everyone. So if there is poverty in my neighborhood, and this can be difficult for some metaphysicians, if there's poverty in my neighborhood, I'm part of it. Even if I don't personally experience it. And if I don't personally experience it, maybe it is because then I am in a position to do something to alleviate it, to relieve it. Again, the law of cause and effect states that everything is connected to a prior cause, that even our choices have consequences, and that which we think and feel and believe, we call that our consciousness. That what's in our consciousness has a sneaky way of becoming reality. Now, when things are going well, that's an awesome law. See that relationship I have with Kevin? I created that. I affirmed it. I visualized. I felt it. I claimed it. I attracted it. Yay, consciousness. But when things are not going so well, it's a little more difficult to take that in, when tragedy or even difficulty, misfortune. And then the question arises, what did I do to create this? Then, like my dog Cooper, we roll onto our back, legs in the air with the shame, and that shaming question, what did you do in your consciousness to create your misfortune? We can do better than that as a teaching. We can do much better than that. You see, sadly, it has been the case in metaphysical communities that people who are suffering setbacks have been made to feel bad because the implication is that they are solely responsible for their circumstances because of what is in their consciousness. I think that is a simplification, an oversimplification of the law of cause and effect, because it does not take into account many things. Like, for example, the consciousness of the group mind, that machine. The group mind that is creating the society that we are born into and that we live in. So metaphysics is not to be used to blame people or ourselves for circumstances that we are working through. If anything, metaphysics ought to inspire us to love and to care for and to help and to contribute to those who are facing challenges. So, instead of asking, "What did you do?" perhaps our focus could be on, what can I bring into play now? What seeds of kindness and love and tolerance can I sow now? What can I share and give and do and be and help with now? Setbacks are one thing. I've created a lot of them with my own thinking, haven't you? Setbacks are one thing. But institutionalized oppression is another thing. And it's something that no one individual creates all by themselves, for themselves, on purpose. An example of institutionalized oppression, well, it's a society that believes that one gender should have more rights than another. Another example is a society in which people of a certain race are denied opportunities, and so on. And it would be unkind to say to someone born into a culture that restricts their rights and their ability to thrive that the fault is with their thinking. We can do better than that as a teaching. Perhaps what we ought to learn to ask instead is, however things got to where they are right now, what can I develop in my own mind right now that will result in the liberation of all? What can I contribute to the world right now that will lessen the suffering for all? How can I use the law of cause and effect not to accuse, but to improve? And caring for those people who do not have access to what they need is called charity. In Islam, charity is one of the pillars, and it's considered to be obligatory, mandatory. And there's also a second form of charity in Islam that is optional, voluntary. And it's a form of charity that can be given in a smile or a listening ear or a helping hand to a neighbor. In other words, it brings kindness right into the mix. And the Hindu scriptures mention it too. They say the three qualities of a spiritual person: self-restraint, number one; compassion, number two; and charity, number three. And charity is hardwired into Judaism too. And charity in Judaism is esteemed as being as important as all of the other laws combined. And interestingly, the word charity in Hebrew, the root of it means something more like justice or righteous action. Now, I mention those faith traditions because I have a question today. What do we have in our science of mind teaching that is similar? Well, we don't have a mandate to give to the poor. We don't have a mandate to give a percentage of our income. We don't have a mandate to volunteer, to help, or to care. However, hidden inside the teaching of the law of cause and effect is this idea that it is up to those of us who can to bring to this world more of what we want to see in it. It's not a mandate, it's a logical result of correctly understanding oneness. We don't have a mandate because we know how important it is to be moved by inspiration and not by blame and shame. Again, we do not have a mandate to give, to help, to share in science of mind, because it is assumed that the one studying the radical teaching of oneness will come to see and love our connectedness and cherish it, and then the feelings of givingness and caring and helping will just be an automatic and natural outgrowth. Our founder said it like this: the one who understands the science of mind will be tolerant, kind, and empathetic. So, if I am not tolerant, or kind, or empathetic, if I'm not giving, and I'm not caring, and I'm not helping, I might want to go back and explore oneness and see where I am with that. I might want to go back to the first principle of science of mind. You know, I came into science of mind at a time when I didn't have much to offer, to give, or the capacity to care. Because I was in such a lot of crisis, so much change and so much challenge, you know. And I remember struggling with this idea of giving because I felt so empty. And one of the teachers at the time said something to me that I have never forgotten. She said, "Edward, when the world around you is contracting and your life is contracting, that is no time for you to shut down. That is the time to open up the windows of your heart by using the easiest, most beautiful, and most effective way to get things moving again, and that is by giving. That's how you activate your natural compassionate center. That's how you set a cause in motion." And I said, "What?" I said, I don't have a lot. I don't even have enough to give other people." And she said to me, and this is the part I've never forgotten, she said, "Edward, never think of yourself as someone who has nothing to give." She said, "Edward, it's never about the amount. It's always about the attitude and feeling and belief behind the action." She said, "Edward, never underestimate the power of even a single dollar given with an attitude of hope and cheer." She said, "Edward, never undervalue the power of a simple act of kindness and its ability to change the world. A smile, a compliment, a random act of kindness." What she didn't say was, "What have you done with your consciousness that you got into such a mess?" You see, instead she was saying, let's see what we can do now with consciousness. Let's begin sowing a seed of freedom and compassion. She met me right where I was, without blame, without shame or spiritual elitism. And she inspired me to dream a bigger dream and to open my heart and to begin to trust the power of kindness for my own sake and for the world's sake. Again, there's no mandate in our science mind teaching to be kind, to be giving, to be generous, to be caring. You can, however, expect that if you do study the radical teaching of the interconnectedness of all life, that you will become a grateful giver and a source of help and a lover of life and an advocate for hope and a shining beacon and a role model for courage. You will. Oh, I love that I can give now. I love that I've learned how to give. I love that the center makes it possible for me to give. I love that we have 12 nonprofit partners every year that we can support that are helping raise people up to their wellness in the world. I was reviewing some of them, COTS 572, that is got the goal of rehousing so many people who are impacted by the fires, the Dogwood Animal Rescue Project, and Jace Foundation that helps families who have been impacted or suffered abduction so that they can heal, and Positive Images supporting and advocating for Sonoma County's gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, asexual, and intersex youth. Yes. And how about Sonoma County Share that's matching individuals needing housing with a senior who otherwise might not be able to remain in their home? And how about Shasta Regional Fire Relief Fund, and then there's the other one, the Sonoma County Food Runner program that shares excess food with people who might not ordinarily have access to that resource. I love that. And again, there's no mandate to participate in any of this. In Science of Mind, there's no mandate to give. There's no mandate to care or to help. It's optional. Or is it? I challenge you. Just try studying oneness and see if you can avoid caring. Good luck. I invite you to breathe in with me and to exhale, letting your eyes close. As we each, in our own way, turn our attention to that eternal, immortal, and everywhere present Spirit, the ground of all being, the all in all, the thing itself, the mind of creation. I identify myself with all that it is, and I remind myself in this prayer that right here where I am, the full living Spirit is present, available, accessible, flowing in and through me. And I declare this to be true of everyone in this auditorium, and together then we join in this prayer to realize that there is that within us, which is the source of our natural inclination to care. And through this presence within, we feel our oneness with each other and all of creation. And in that identity, our capacity to love and to be a good steward and to care and to harmonize and to help comes naturally and easily forward to the front. Just by speaking this word of prayer, everything that has stood in the way of that compassionate connection is dissolved right now. And that is worth rejoicing. That shift in consciousness is delightful to have. And so I celebrate it. And I remember that as I speak this word, that there is a law, a spiritual law, responding even now. And that is why in this moment, I am so filled with joyful expectancy. And together we say, and so it is.